The chairman signed in with his laptop, and Vita is looking into the internet connection issue up here. But if there's nothing, Greg, that you need to give the chairman an update on, we can go ahead and get started.
Well, let me just, I haven't updated anything, so just let me, for everybody waiting for him to get on, but this is, he doesn't need to listen to this.
The chairman
just a couple things for
signed
all
in with
the,
his laptop, and
all the
Vita
motions,
is looking into the internet.
Director Jakes, would you so move and good morning. I'm Greg Longini, Secretary to the Board of Chicago Transit Authority. On December 8th, 2021, this office of the board issued a changed format of meetings of the committees and board meetings today. There is currently in effect a statewide disaster declaration as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And because of that, all meetings will take place today virtually. Thank you. And so we are ready to begin the December 15th meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kevin Irvine,
good morning.
Vice Chair of the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee, but chairing today in the absence of Director Silva. I'd like to call to order the December 15th, 2021 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Meetings of the committee. Yes, Director Silva is not here today. Director Miller? Director Miller?
It looks as if he's fallen off.
Okay, let's wait.
It's coming back now.
Director Miller, could you unmute, I think?
He's in now.
I'm sorry, he's now on?
Yeah.
He's connected now.
Okay, Director Miller, I'm taking the roll call vote. Are you here?
Yes, here.
Okay, that's great, no problem, just double checking. Director Jakes?
Present.
Present by Director Jakes. Director Barkley?
Here.
Okay, and Vice Chairman Irvine?
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a quorum of the committee with 4 members present, and let the record show that General Counsel Karen Simons and Chief Financial Officer Jeremy Fine are actually in the building here at 567 West Lake Street.
Thank you, Greg. Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of November 17th, 2021. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, let's go with Director Miller.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'm a little bit confused myself. Okay, Director Miller, we've got Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Irvine.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved with 4 yes votes, sir.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine.
Good morning, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll give an overview of the October results as well as year-to-date numbers. On the first page here, we see the results for October revenues. They're following a similar form of what we've seen over the past several months. Fare and pass totals are down slightly to the amended and original budgets by about $1 million to the amended budget and a little under $6 million to the original budget. Reduced fare subsidy continues to come in as expected. However, that is half of what we have historically received and well below what we actually give out in free and reduced fare rides. Non-fare box totals continue to perform well, where we're seeing about $1.2 million of positive variance on the amended budget and about $600,000 on the original budget. So overall, for the month of October, we see revenues slightly positive on an amended budget basis by about $200,000 and down to the original budget by about $5.2 million. On the next page, you see the year-to-date numbers. Again, they follow a similar type form. Fare and pass totals are down about $5 million to the amended budget, but positive by about $4.4 million to the original budget. Reduced fare subsidy is again coming in as expected. Non-fare box totals are essentially flat, slightly positive on an amended budget basis, and down about $12 million to the original budget. So overall, year to date, we see total revenues coming in essentially flat, slightly down on the amended budget basis by $4.5 million, and on an original budget basis, about $7.6 million. With regard to our expenses, for October, we see labor coming in positive by about $2 million, material coming in negative by about $500,000. Fuel and power continue to be strong performers for us, providing cumulative almost $1.5 million of variance positive. Injuries and damages is coming in as expected, and then security services coming in slightly positive, with other expenses rounding it out, coming in positive by almost $1.2 million on the amended budget basis and a little over $500,000 on the original budget. So overall, for the month of October, we see positive variance to the amended budget by about $4.7 million and just shy of $4 million of positive variance on an original budget basis. If you couple this with our revenues, we end up the month of October on an amended budget basis positive by about $4.9 million, and on an original budget basis, we're slightly negative by about $1.2 million. With regard to year-to-date expense numbers, again, following a similar form of what we talked about on the monthly totals. So dropping down to the bottom line here, we see total operating expenses positive on an amended budget basis by about $43.5 million. And to the original budget, we're positive by about $42.3 million. Again, when you couple this with our revenues, year-to-date, we're positive to the amended budget by $39 million. And we're positive to the original budget by $44.7 million. On the next page, please. We see our public funding, and it continues to perform very well too. We see sales tax coming in about $14 million to the positive on an amended budget basis, and about $15 million on original budget. PTF, the public transportation funds, are coming in positive by about $7 million on an amended budget basis, and about $9.5 million on an original budget basis. Real estate transfer tax also is performing well, where we're positive by about $2 million on the amended budget and about $1.5 million on the original budget. Rounding it out is PTF on rent and ICE, where we're seeing about $1 million of variance on an amended budget and an original budget basis. So that leaves us for the month about $24 million to the positive on an amended budget basis, and about $27.5 million positive on an original budget basis. The cumulative effect is shown on the next slide. And again, dropping down to the bottom line here, we see about $167.5 million of positive variance on an amended budget, and just shy of $200 million of positive variance on an original budget basis. Next slide, please. Here we talk about the three sources of federal funding that we've been allotted. The CARES funding is what we've been using through the duration of the year here, and we have about $40 million remaining before that funding source is fully exhausted. At that point, we'll switch to using CRISA and ARP funding for remaining gaps in 2021, 22, 23, and into 24. So again, we've been able to carry over the CARES funding. Here but we will start needing to dip into the other sources of funding as we continue to move forward and as we continue to regain our ridership. Next slide, please. With regard to the three commodities that we purchased, fuel, power, and natural gas, late in the cycle, not shown here, but we will talk about it in more detail next month. But quick highlight, we were able to buy additional fuel based on a temporary dip in pricing for 2023, about 20% there, and about 10% for 24 and 10% for 25. So we'll continue to look for opportunistic buys, not only on fuel, but on power and natural gas. But as we've talked about in prior months, we are locked in for where we need to be, for power and natural gas, but we will continue to look for those opportunistic buys, particularly in the fuel market as prices avail themselves. That concludes my report for the month of October. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Director Irvine, any questions?
Thanks, Jeremy. The only question I have is just about non-fare box revenues. I mean, it looks like they're going up. You can see more ads on buses and trains, and you're out and about. I know we're doing better than this time, this month last year. How are we doing compared to like 2019 and previous years?
Yeah, we're still seeing below 2019 type levels, but we are starting to see some growth off of our budgeted expectations. As you indicate, you're starting to see more ads returning to the system, and that's a good thing. So we'll continue to press intersection on driving more advertising throughout the system and looking for some expansion on that once things start to stabilize. But I think that the larger economy coming back and stabilizing has helped the advertising effort as well. Because you had kind of a double whammy there for a while, particularly at the front end of the pandemic, where marketing budgets, advertising budgets had been cut because of just the general effect on the economy. But you're starting to see that come back as you're starting to see our ridership returning as well. So, again, positive trends on both sides, and we'll continue to keep the board apprised as those continue.
Thanks, Jeremy. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
All right, there's no further questions. Vice Chairman, we move to number A1, contracts.
Thank you. Our next order of business is contract number A1, a leasing of bus tires contract.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time.
All right, Director Barkley?
No questions at this time.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
All right, no questions there. So A2, Director.
Thank you. Our next order of business is contract number A2, a manufacturer and delivery of rail cars contract. And I don't have any questions.
All right, Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Let's go to B1.
Our next order of business today is contract number B1, a cleaning equipment contract.
Kevin?
And I don't have any questions.
All right, Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Let's move on to B2.
Our next order of business today is contract number B2, a structural steel maintenance contract. And I don't have any questions.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Okay, B3.
Our next order of business today is contract number B3, a change order for the rental and laundering of flame-resistant work clothing contract. And I've got no questions.
Director Barkley?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
All right, that was B3, so correct, B4.
Our next order of business today is contract number B4, a change order to a cleaning services contract. And I have no questions.
Director Barkley?
No question.
No. Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Okay, B5.
Our next order of business today is contract number B5, a change order to a maintenance inspections contract. And I don't have any questions.
Director Barkley?
No question.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
B6.
The next order of business is contract number B6, a construction management contract, and I don't have any questions.
Director Barclay.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Okay, D as in dog 1.
Our next order of business is contract number D1, an amendment to a project management contract, and I don't have any questions for this one either.
Director Barclay.
No questions.
Director
No question.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Okay, G1.
Our next order of business today is contract number G1, a change order to a management and maintenance contract, and no questions from me.
Director Barclay.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
G2.
Our final order of business today is contract number G2, a change order to a proposal request. No questions at this time.
Director Barclay.
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Okay, 4A, Kevin.
If there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 11 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Jakes, second by Director Miller. Chairman Irvine, we may proceed to 4B now.
Thank you. Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Director Jakes and Miller. Let's move on to agenda item number 5, sir.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'm going to say so moved, but before I say so moved, great job, Vice Chairman Irvine. I mean, you just got us through here. I mean, you know, so moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
So the motion to adjourn, moved and seconded by the two reverends, Reverend Jakes and Reverend. So we can take a roll call vote, right?
Yes.
Right. Yes. It's been moved and seconded. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Barclay.
Yes.
And our esteemed Vice Chairman Irvine.
Keeping the trains running on time. Yes.
All right, so we're adjourned. What time is it right now? It's 9. Is it 9? Yes, we'll start at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Good morning again. It's Greg Longini of the CTA Board Office. Chairman Barkley, we are ready to begin the board meeting.
Yes. Good morning. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for December 15th, 2021. Would the secretary call the roll?
Director Miller,
Here.
Director Jakes,
Here.
Director Irvine,
Here.
Chairman Barkley.
Here.
Oh, and let the record note that Director Silva is absent today. We have a quorum, sir.
Our first order of business is public comment. Greg, is there any public comment?
No, sir, there's none today.
Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of November 17th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Miller. I'll now take the vote. Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
The minutes are approved, sir.
Our next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, there is no executive session today.
That's correct, Chairman. We do not have executive session today.
Our next order of business is board matters. The board matter on the agenda is an ordinance amending ordinance number 015-47 regarding compensation of the president of the Chicago Transit Authority. Before I entertain a motion on this item, I'd like to say a few words. As you know, the past 21 months have been unlike anything this agency has ever seen. The CTA, like transit agencies across the country, had to re-examine almost every facet of its business. It had to keep providing as much service as possible while providing the healthiest and most comfortable environment possible for its customers and employees. Day in and day out, the CTA had to address unprecedented challenges. Running a transit agency during normal times is a Herculean task. Doing so during a global pandemic was nothing short of remarkable. It is important to remember that CTA was the only major U.S. transit agency to not cut scheduled service, ensuring that the CTA continued to provide transportation for essential workers like healthcare providers and first responders and riders traveling for essential purposes like medical appointments, grocery shopping, and picking up prescriptions. Also, the CTA regained more than 50% of its pre-pandemic ridership, one of the best recoveries among all large U.S. transit agencies. That takes leadership. It takes strong, effective leadership, the kind that puts customers and employees first. CTA is very lucky to have that leadership. Since May 2015, Dorval Carter has led an unprecedented investment in modernization and improvement while maintaining an acute focus on customer satisfaction. What he has done for this agency over the past 6 years is without parallel. Without Dorval, we wouldn't have had RPM. Without Dorval Carter, we would not have had all the station's accessibility program. Without Dorval, we wouldn't have made a commitment to convert to an all-electric bus fleet. Without Dorval, we wouldn't have had an agency-wide focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And without Dorval, we would not have made nearly as much progress on what will be the agency's most transformative project in its history, the extension of the Red Line to 130th Street. It was not surprising that earlier this year, the American Public Transit Association, which represents more than 1,500 transit providers in North America, recognized the CTA as the outstanding transit agency. And they also recognized President Carter as the outstanding transportation manager. It was the first time in APTA's history that one agency received the two top awards in the same year. Now, President Carter will be the first to note that the awards are first and foremost a recognition of the hard work and dedication of CTA employees. And that's certainly true, but there's no question that his leadership and his vision has played a huge part in CTA's success. As a board, I believe we're all in agreement on the importance of keeping President Carter at CTA. We needed him before the pandemic. We needed him during the pandemic. And now we need him as we're emerging from the pandemic. There is no more sought after or respected transit agency executive in the country than President Carter. And there is no other national transit leader better equipped to lead the CTA out of the pandemic and head first into our region's recovery. I can tell you that there are a number of transit agencies who would do whatever they could to have a leader of Dorval's caliber. In order to retain top talent, you have to compensate them appropriately. For many, many years, the CTA president's salary has remained far below that of executives at other large transit agencies. Even here in Chicago, in the Chicago area, the CTA president's current salary is the third largest among the four transit entities. Adjusting the president's salary to be in line with that of other U.S. transit agency peers is a prudent thing to do. This salary increase is not solely a recognition of President Carter's accomplishments to date. It reflects the enormity of the challenges ahead of him. Not only will he be charged with leading our agency out of the effects of the pandemic, but he'll also lead the massive and complex level of investment that will take place in the coming years, thanks to the new federal infrastructure funding bill. I'd like to thank President Carter for his continuing commitment to the CTA and the city of Chicago. And I look forward to working with him to tackle the many challenges this agency faces. Thank you. And now I will open the floor for any comments from any board members.
Director Miller here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just coincide with you in saying congratulations and thanks to President Carter. And I have to just say, long overdue, well deserved. God bless you. We thank you for your leadership, and we are happy that this is coming into fruition as it has. Bless you.
This is Director Irvine, and I just want to say, President Carter, it's been such a pleasure to work with you on this go-round at CTA. When I first heard that Mayor Emanuel had convinced you to return to Chicago from your fantastic post with the Department of Transportation, I was shocked and stunned and excited, and it has paid tremendous dividends for everybody that counts on transit in the Chicago region, including many of us who have disabilities. And we are ever thankful for your vision, your leadership, and the steady hand you're showing, and everything that you've done during the pandemic has reinforced the value you bring to the CTA and to the city, the region, and really, I mean, everyone in Illinois and anyone that may travel through the Chicago area. So thank you, and I'm excited to see what you do in the future.
President Carter, you're a rock star. That's all. That's all I got. You're a rock star.
I will now, any further comment?
Mr. Chairman, can I just say something real quick before you take the vote? You were right to point out, and I agree that, my accomplishments are really the result of a team effort for my staff and all the employees here at CTA. In many ways, my job is made a lot easier by the work that they do every day, moving people and keeping this economy rolling. But I also want to thank the board. There's no question that I would not have been able to do the things that I've done without the full support of the board, including those members who aren't able to be with us here today. And I am extremely appreciative and grateful for your support and your work. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you as we continue to move this agency forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to approve the ordinance amending ordinance number 015-47 regarding compensation of the president of the Chicago Transit Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Greg, want to take the roll call?
You got to take a vote?
Mute.
Greg, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Me and technology. It was the motion has been moved and seconded by Jason Miller. Another vote. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
Well, with no surprise, that vote passes 4-0.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Irvine.
Thank you. The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via Zoom video teleconference. The committee approved the November 17th, 2021 committee minutes. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed 11 contracts. The committee approved all 11 contracts and placed them on the Omnibus and recommended board approval of the Omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Barkley.
Thank you, Director Irvine. May I now have a motion to approve the Omnibus as stated by Director Irvine?
So moved.
Second.
I'm moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Miller. I'll take the vote. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes.
Vote on the Omnibus passes with 4 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney.
Morning, directors. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer with your monthly construction update. We can move to the first project. So our first project is our Jefferson Park to O'Hare signals upgrade. The project remains tight to schedule and on budget. Since we last met, we completed the cutover at Cumberland interlocking in the relay house there, and we've begun the cutover at River Road. And we are marching very fast towards O'Hare Terminal's cutover, which is one of the bigger portions of this job, where we'll be leaving kind of the minor diamonds on the right of way going into the major terminal, and we'll begin that work in the new year. Let's move to the pictures. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll be preparing to cut over O'Hare Terminal. As part of that, what we're doing is we're installing a temporary signal system that will operate under during the cutover period that allows us to rebuild all the permanent infrastructure. So what you're seeing here is that the equipment for that temporary signal system, it's been installed in an adjacent room to the relay room, and it's been tracked down to all the equipment at track level, which will allow us to build out the relay room in place. It's a physical room, unlike some of the houses I've shown you, as it's actually in the subway there. It's kind of a vital piece of that project that will allow us to continue to operate fully out of the airport during this cutover phase with minimum interruptions to our customers while progressing the work in an expedited manner. Next slide. So then shortly after O'Hare comes Rosemont, which is the last kind of major portion of this project. And so here's some photos of them installing conduits for the runs that go back to the major kind of root tower at the terminal there at Rosemont. And ultimately all the waste set equipment around the yard and other stuff. Next slide. This last photo is part of the cutover at River Road. So part of the work we do on each one of these interlockings is we actually replace the switch machines, which is what you see them craning out here. and the ties underneath the switch machines. So those switch machines get bolted down into railroad ties that are a little longer than kind of what holds the standard track. And they're actually probably the most vital ties we have in those interlockings, because they hold the machine as well as the track and the interface between those things, and they get beat up a lot for that. So we replace the ties so that they're brand new with the brand new machine and kind of go with that life cycle. And that's what you're seeing here. Next slide, please. Our next project is our Refresh and Renewed program. I'm really excited to say that at this point in the program, we have all 35 stations either completed or in progress, with the schedule to be completed by end of year as was committed. We also have been advancing the SBE painting program, and the 92 stations we're committed with that. We're actually actively out to bid for the other 2 contracts for that painting program. And as of reflected here, we have 28 of the 29 directional line diagram signs, with the last one scheduled to be completed by the end of the month. So as of next month, we'll be wrapping up kind of the major portions of this program. This was mostly done with in-house forces and the support of the SBE painting contract. I'm exceptionally proud of the work that the crews have rallied behind. This was double the work we typically go after in a year. I think it set the tone for our customers as they've started to come back to the system about the welcome mat, and I think the work's been outstanding. And I'm really, really proud of both the management that led the effort, as well as all the trades that put in their time and energy working on it. So if we can move some photos. So this is LaSalle Van Buren in the loop. This is on the south leg of the loop. Anyone that's ever been to the station can appreciate how incredibly hard it is to make a station that's over 100 years old without any significant upgrades in that time period look good again. I think they really did an outstanding job here. So on the left is before kind of condition for painting. On the right's the after, with the upgraded lighting and painting. This is underneath the 2 station mezzanines and the tracks where you can transfer over between the 2 sides of the railroad. Next slide. Here's kind of the typical upgrade of the stairs. So these are wood stairs. They replaced damaged treads and risers and upgraded the signage, as well as the clean coat of paint and the upgraded lighting. Next slide. So this is up in the head house at the top of the stairs. And to me, this is about one of the biggest wow pictures we could have out there. I mean, this is, you kind of see on the left, the before, and on the right, the after, the upgraded lighting, the clean scraped walls, the clean stairwells down. And to me, that's as you're entering or exiting that station for the first time after a year. I mean, that really says a lot. Next slide. Here is Ashland on the Orange Line. So as we've talked kind of previously in a couple of these, we've taken the Refresh and Renew outside the rail stations proper. So here we are in the bus terminal right outside. You can kind of see the impact of the before after of the painting, the lighting upgrade, as well as concrete repair in that bus turnaround. Big impact kind of for our bus customers in that transfer point. Next slide. So this is what we typically call the furniture. So the recycling bins, the garbage cans, the benches in the station proper. Again, kind of these are high touch surfaces, see a lot of beating and kind of that refreshed impact. Next slide. And then here's kind of our directional signage upgrades. So again, kind of the importance of making sure all our signage is reflective of all the access we have in our system as we move forward to being fully accessible, and it becomes less of a relevant concern. But as we still have some restricted points, it's important that people can make the decisions as they're on the path. So next slide. And then here's some of the SBE painting work. Again, we've been really proud of the work. The firms have been really high quality work, and it's progressing really well. So here's 43 Green Line. Next slide. This is Indiana. So again, you can kind of see the color change, touch surface. We tend to go to some of the darker tones on these touch surfaces, which help hide cleanliness issues, and they'll beat up a little more. So next slide. So this is a high visibility site on a step just outside the station. That's kind of along the lines of what we've done in some of the pilots with contrasting stair treads to make that obvious for people, as that there's a difference in height as you exit that or enter that station. Next slide. My next projects are Jackson Park track and structure upgrade project. The project continues on budget and on schedule. The work is on the northbound, southbound tracks north of 61st, and we're now working kind of between 61st and 62nd. We've completed work on the southbound track, and they're moved over to the northbound track. Next slide. So here they are doing tie replacement in the interlocking at 61st Street. We're directly adjacent to the yards. We're able to work kind of out of the yard off the edge of the main line to help facilitate the work with some of the heavy equipment, railborne heavy equipment we use to do our work. Next slide. Here's some of that renewal on the southbound track, fresh ties. Next slide. And here's that ongoing structural work in the area. So we've actually started a series of line cuts to support these large cross girders that go across 63rd Street, and actually rebuilding the flange structures and those cross girders as part of it. It's a pretty daunting effort, and we have a series of line cuts over the upcoming months that kind of facilitate that work and advance the tie work. Next slide. Our South Shops waste material and storage project is moving to completion on schedule and on budget. It's been a nice little project. We're doing some safe, good repair work out of South Shops. Next slide. All the work has been focused on the waste storage, material storage building, which is coming quickly to completion and will be completed next month when we talk. So here they are. They're doing all the foundational of. I've shown you kind of the walls and the substructure. Now you've got the flat floor for the house being built. Next slide. And then we started adding the roof. So here you see kind of that floor in place, and then they started adding all the structural steel and the tin for the roof of the house. It ultimately gets a cage built around it and access gates, but it's an open air facility. Next slide. So Dan Ryan Inverters is another project that's coming quickly to a close. We have at this point completed all the installations, and we are moving into the commissioning phase. So over the next month or so, we'll be commissioning all these inverters and putting them online. So since we last met, here's the last pieces of work that have been completed. So as shown in a couple months, we're flying in these independent platforms of equipment that then get installed and wired up. Next slide. Here they are wiring up those stand that you just saw and connecting it to the relay house proper. Next slide. This is our northbound state in Dearborn. So this will be the last time I report on this project, as we are 100% complete at this point. It was, again, a very significant good investment in our track infrastructure in the subways, which sees a lot of use and abuse kind of with the weather and watering. Next slide. So here's the last weekend on the Dearborn, where we installed more new rail being set in place. That rail gets a lot of deterioration from water exposure, both from kind of the trains dragging it in as well as the subway tunnel itself. Next slide. So here they are bolting down the plates that hold that rail in place on those concrete ties. Next slide. And here they are removing some of the rail that's been replaced. So we dragged it out of the subway and had to fly it out with crane to the parking lots adjacent to the subway there. Next project, please. This is our Irving Park escalator and canopy replacement project. So we are in the painting phase of the canopy. They've removed all the bubbles or the old canopy that they've been able to remove at date, and now they're painting and prepping that for the installation of the new canopy in the upcoming months, as well as in the upcoming months, we'll be closing Irving Park entrance of that station to facilitate the installation of the new escalator there. So we can move on to the photos. Here they are doing the priming, the prep work for that steel. I've shown you kind of some of the scraping, and then they come back and do a primer coat and then a finish coat on the upper portion of that to prep it for the canopy installation. Next slide. And here's kind of an above. I've shown you lots of pictures of them taking down the bubbles, but here's kind of what it looks like upstairs as they remove the tracks and kind of the Lexon that goes with it. Next slide. So this is a new project this month we're talking about. This is our one that I'm really excited about. This has been on the books for a better part of the last 12 years. So this is for a new non-revenue rail vehicle facility. It's being constructed as a design build project by Clark Construction. An overall project value about $70 million. Our CM is WSP on this. So we are building a new shop that maintains the equipment that maintains the rest of the world for us. So this is all the equipment that I use as part of my business to maintain the tracks, the structures, the signal systems, and other things. We do a lot of this work. It's rail borne. This is also the crews that maintain the big diesel snow fighters we use to remove snow in the winters months. So we used to maintain this facility out of 61st Street. That facility had to be decommissioned in the late 2009 timeframe. And that work had to be reprogrammed kind of system-wide to be accommodated. It's never really found a good home, and it's really been struggled because it's a really complicated sets of equipment that requires different things than our standard rail cars. And so we've had a project kind of on the books for them to create a facility to be able to house that and make it efficient and meaningful. We're building this at 63rd and Calumet, which is a rail storage yard for materials and a warehousing yard. Directly kind of south of where the predecessor facility was. And it's a pretty significant project. We had a lot of community involvement. It's one of the first projects we've ever done that actually required a plan development. through the city because of the size of the project itself. So in the upcoming months, you'll start to see some photos of the earthwork, and as we're moving through the design phase pretty quickly here, and we'll start be digging holes and building foundations for that, and then we'll start seeing building go up. So if we can move some the renderings, please. So I talked a little bit about this beginning of the year. So these are kind of the final renderings towards the design. It's a really, really attractive building compared to kind of the footprint that was there. It also helps shelter the neighborhood there's an adjacent freight railroad yard directly there. That the Norfolk Southern runs a big hump yard, and so it's actually kind of the hump yard itself is a little bit obnoxious, and so this building helps create some protection from an adjacent school, as well as some housing that's directly around there. So it gets landscaping on both the Calumet side and the 63rd side. It remains this existing entrance for the warehouse, and the warehouse operations remain on site and have been relocated kind of to the back corner of that yard as well, away from the frontage. And and this is a pretty large scale facility because it's being maintained. It is pretty large. It will be a brick facaded building. It meets the sustainability standards by design that the city requires for all these properties, and I think it's going to be a really great facility for us. Next slide. So here it gives you kind of a sense of the footprint of the yard we're in. So we're going to be on what would be to kind of the right side of the slide that you're looking at, right up on the frontage. That facility takes up about half that yard space. The building in the back is the warehouse there, as well as all the yard storage around it. Gives you a sense of kind of what the footprint was out there to begin with. Next slide. Here's a couple photos of the site of the pre-existing conditions. This is as we start relocating some of the material from the frontage. Next slide. Here's a slightly older photo of that same footprint. Shows you kind of what the frontage looked like today. Storage of material, this is mostly heavy equipment material, so it's railroad ties, rail, third rail, stuff like that. So it's big bulk size stuff that we've been able to kind of relocate and consolidate the site a little bit to make space for this. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris, unless you have any questions for me. Juan Pablo, did you want to talk about northbound State and Dearborn at all?
Hold one second, Bill. We're going to take questions on your stuff first and then move on to them. Is that all right?
I don't know if Juan Pablo wanted to provide a DBE update on.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. So that's part of your construction report.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. For the MidCon work order for northbound State, we assessed a 30% DBE goal. The contractor committed to 30%, is attaining over 30%. So we're confident that with final payment, they will meet the goal. Thank you, Bill.
So that's it, Greg, if we want to take some questions now.
Okay, I'm sorry I got confused once you called in Juan Pablo. Yes, Chairman Barkley, any questions for either Bill Mooney or Juan Pablo Prieto?
Just a comment with respect to Bill Mooney. The refresh program has just gone over so well. I've gotten a number of comments and compliments. Just looks good, and you might be stuck with that for a while. I know it's seasonal, but it's gone over very, very well for the CTA. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm so absolutely happy, ecstatic to hear that, Chairman Barclay. The crews are exceptionally proud of it, and I would just highlight that it's really not seasonal. We do it on the rail stations in kind of the good weather months because they're mostly outdoors, but we actually go indoors and do a similar version of the program for our internal customers. So we actually are moving into the shops and garages over the next couple of months, and we do kind of the same type of effort in those front things. So we keep them busy year round, and I have no intention of walking away from it. I don't know if we'll get 35 stations again next year, but we're going to be aggressive again. I like the momentum we got. So.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Director Miller, any questions?
Well, no, this is just a comment. Want to thank Bill Mooney. This 12-year movement finally get this beautiful building and all the work that's coming in on time and on schedule and meeting the budget. Thanks for all that work. And with the DVEs, good that the numbers are up. We have some concern that as they are up on the breakdown, and we want to talk about that. How do we continue to make sure that the number goes up when it comes to the DBs with the as relate to Black contractors and Black participants?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Director Jakes?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Irvine.
No question, just yeah, just kudos, Bill, and Juan Pablo, to you and your teams. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Chairman Barkley, that's all the questions for Bill.
No further questions.
So we can move on, sir.
Yes, we'll now call on Chris, Michelle, and Juan Pablo Prieto to make their RPM and diversity presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. RPM continues tight to schedule and on budget. We could go to the next slide. And the next slide. So a lot of work going on. Chairman, as you know, we opened the bypass. Thank you very much for being part of that event. It was a good ride. Very very happy about having reached that milestone. And now on the bypass, we continue to do miscellaneous pieces of work. Now that we've completed the bridge over, or the bypass, we're starting to work on the bridge that's under, the 4-track bridge that's under there in the area of Belmont. And what we're doing at the moment is really setting up various pieces of track work for the larger renovation of the two westernmost tracks in that area, tracks 3 and 4. So we have done a series of cut and throws in recent weekends. We continue with that work, leading up to a more holistic renovation of those two western tracks in the late winter, early spring. In the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization, you'll see some photographs of this. We're working on the bridge on top, the bridge involving our gantry, which has been fully assembled. We've put together the first span of the segmented box girder, and then we continue to do various pieces of work supporting the continuation of that bridge going forward. That bridge is on the other side, the first one up in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. That's actually on the first bridge will be on the east side of our 4-track corridor in that area. If we could go to the next slides. So here we see a nice picture of the bypass. I can't confirm that this was the train that the chairman was on. I think it was still a little darker, Chairman, when we were out there than that picture, but still a good one. We have had a lot of very positive feedback from our customers in regard to the ride quality and not having to wait coming out of Belmont to be able to continue on their ride. So that's been a positive effort. Next. In the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment, this is the construction of one of the columns. Obviously, the bridge will span between these columns. Uniquely, and one of the defining things is our columns are typically about 50 feet apart, but with this new bridge, we can cut the number of columns actually by 3/4 because we need fewer columns in between in an individual sort of slice of the bridge, and we can put those columns further apart. That's one of the reasons why we have gone with this type of bridge in this area. Next slide. And you get kind of a full picture here of how the gantry works. It's an intricate structure that's used for building these longer span bridges. If those of you that haven't seen it up there, I would recommend taking a trip. It's very interesting, huge machine about the length of a football field. Next. And here you get kind of a picture of what that first segment looks like. Subsequent to this photograph, we've finished that first segment, but here you kind of see the closing days of it, and how these various pieces of concrete, these precast pieces of concrete, are assembled. Next. And of course, we continued with our outreach on the project. First and foremost, we have regular updates for the various ward offices. We meet regularly with the local business community, in particular in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment, where there's a lot of retail business, many of which have been significantly impacted first and foremost by the pandemic, but anything we can do to ease that, as well as inform people of the various elements of construction or promote our Open for Business campaigns, we are doing that. We've launched a new edition of an RPM newsletter that we're sending out with various updates. The RPM Scoop, it just gives people a little bit of a advanced notice, either on human interest stories or on work that's coming up. We have continued to send out cans or community notices relative to various pieces of work that we're doing. We have virtual office hours, and we had some good press around the bypass opening. And with that, I'll turn it over to Juan Pablo Prieto in regard to workforce, SBE, and DBE.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Diversity continues to meet with the contractor monthly to discuss DBE and workforce outreach compliance. Both the prime contractor and CTA diversity programs send out trade packages to the DBE community to make sure they're aware of the opportunities and how to submit their bids. We also continue to meet regularly with both our workforce partners, the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership and Hire 360, to discuss upcoming opportunities on the project and how to prepare individuals interested in a career in construction to be competitive for them. As we get to the annual lull in the construction season, we're focused on coordinating with the prime and their subs about opportunities for the spring when construction will pick back up, and then relaying that information to the partners so that they're ready to send candidates to meet those needs. As of November 30th, over $180.2 million have been awarded between the design and construction packages to 71 unique DBE firms. The contractor has made an effort to provide additional opportunities for firms that are currently working on RPM to win more and larger scopes, as well as engaging with firms that are not currently on the project to discuss opportunities for them to submit bids. Of the 71 unique DBE firms in the project, 25 are new to CTA. On the workforce side, as of November 30th, RPM has produced over 590,000 labor hours, and contractor and subcontractor employees have earned over $33.5 million in wages. To date, the design build contract has also created over 1,300 construction trade jobs. These figures represent families sustaining middle-class jobs, which is why we continue to outreach to the community to ensure that residents of economically disadvantaged areas have resources to access these careers. That concludes my portion of the report. We're happy to answer any questions.
Chairman Barkley?
No questions at this
Director Miller?
No questions. We talked about yesterday, and we're working with Juan Pablo to make sure that we can work together to bring those numbers up, but no other questions. Thanks.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions. Just want to, say I've enjoyed riding on the bypass, especially in the light. And I just wish we could have a bus bypass to get around all those single occupancy vehicles that are out there. But that's another matter. Anyway, but thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Chairman Barkley, there's no further questions for either Chris or Juan Pablo.
I do want to go back and just thank Chris and his team and everybody on the team, Looney and everyone, for allowing me to take that maiden voyage. I had a great opportunity. I had to get up at 4 o'clock, Director Irvine. I thought you were going to be there with me, but we caught the first train and enjoyed that. And on behalf of the board, we expressed our gratitude to staff and contractors for the hard work that they did there. And we really appreciate that. That is, it may not be one of the 7 wonders of the world, but it falls somewhere in Chicago's history there. So we appreciate what you guys have done there. And thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I also wanted to thank you for taking a ride on a holiday train last week. I know that you enjoyed it because you and I talked about it, but I also know how much, and I know Mr. Bonds feels the same way, how much the employees appreciate seeing you out there and supporting the work that our employees do in terms of making the holiday train happen every year. And I also wanted to just make sure that and extend an invite to the rest of the board members. If any of you want to get a ride on the train, just let us know and we can coordinate, your schedule with the train schedule to make sure you get a chance to experience it. I can tell you it's quite a treat to be on that train and just see the work that our employees have put into it.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to highlight that as well. Don Bonds was kind enough to meet and greet me there, and along with his team, and extend warm hospitality. It's a great experience. I'm taking advantage of everything that CTA has to offer, and I'm enjoying the ride. So I invite you, fellow directors, if there's something that's going on that might be of interest, get on board. Because I think that this is what it's about: supporting our staff and letting the public know that this is a great agency and we've got a lot to offer here. Thank you very much. Our next order of business.
I just got to say, I just want to jump in on the holiday train since we're talking about it. I second that. I hope everyone takes advantage of the chance to ride the holiday train. It's a lot of fun. I was at Rush with my daughter yesterday, and we were checking the schedule, hoping that we could use it to get back home, but it didn't work out. But we've ridden it a bunch of times in the past, and definitely I made sure to watch it when it was coming through my neighborhood on the Brown Line. So yeah, get out there and get on the holiday train and the holiday bus too. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Our next order of business is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
No, sir, there's not.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting of December 15, 2021.
With a hearty, happy holidays, everybody, I say so moved.
Second. Thank you.
The motion was moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Miller. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley.
Yes, and happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. And the motion is approved to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.